Alright, today we got a little bit of an update from Unigine, and let's talk a little bit about it. So right now, I was actually making the final settings up here for the game dev, but we want to talk a little bit about the updates on Unigine. So, without further ado, let's go in sequence. We do have a few updates, a lot of good stuff, most of it from the graphics side. There's a lot of upscalers and there's a lot of performance boosts, and other than that we do have a little bit of bug fixes here and there. So it's not too much, but it really is a quality of life. So the first thing we're going to see is that we do have USD Import and Export. Now this is purely, if I remember correctly, for sim editions. So if you have a sim edition, you have the USD Import and Export, because so far it does not work on the community edition, or I must have tried it wrong. But in reality, what you do is you just have the article right here where you go inside and it tells you how to add it, where you either write it as a shell command, where you go into your project, configure in the editor right here, and then in the arguments you can add it here, or when you have a project open you could just write it here. Now this is a community, it's not going to work in the community because import and export manager is sim and engineering editions only. So this is a really good thing, especially if you work with like USD type files, or if you work in Autodesk. This is really good for you, especially for sim editions. For community, we don't really have this yet, but it's not really that big of a deal. We can always like transfer it into FBX and then bring it up. But yes, of course, that extra step would have been nice, but it is what it is, right? The next thing that we have as an update is the Hashmap Optimization. Normally, we don't really use hash maps or hash sets. We go straight for the main one. But since they made their own version, they did have an increase, and it's more performant based on if you're using Unigine based stack items or Unigine based objects like Unigine string, right? Those who don't know what a hash map or hash sets are, basically it's a dictionary or like a way to have key value data. And next thing you can have is something like a video streaming improvement like Sim Edition, where you basically have configurations where your host client or your computer takes care of the calculations, and then you could send one camera to one computer, you could send another one to a mobile, and you can send one to a laptop, and then you have different stuff. The applications for this in Sim is pretty nice. Like for example, if you had like a submarine, for just giving an example, or something that you have to take care of multiple, like a factory, right? And you have different cameras of the factory, and you can have like a simulator edition of a game, like a factory simulator, and you can have different cameras, and then some people can literally check on it on camera 1 or camera 2, and then they can have like some kind of connection. Especially when you know how to do network, you can have like a little talk or like a button, and it can be like a video game. The next update is definitely in our screen space ray trace GI, and this is really good because they did say they were going to fix a few things, especially since it was a little clunky, but it wasn't too bad. And now they said that they did make it more photorealistic, there's more distribution, and they have reworked the ray distribution. So basically they changed the way the coding is, especially since in the last few weeks or months there were a few research papers that got released on how to implement a harmonized ray effect, and I think maybe they used it, but I'm not sure since I'm not working with them. But it's really good to see that they did fix a few things inside here and made it look better. Other than that, there's also other improvements, like for example, culling for lights have been increased. It's like 10 times for projected. That's pretty fast. The shadow distances and clippings have been increased. Impacts, we've increased movements, ambient occlusions. So there's quite a lot of increases in terms of lights and shadows. So this is a really good update for bug fixes, and you can definitely see it. The next difference is the OpenXR support. So OpenXR basically allows you to have one hand tracking support or the VR support in all in one area. So instead of having a different type of coding for the Vajro and different for Oculus and different for the Steam VR, I guess, you have it all under one. Other than that, we also have an upscaler in VR. So just like how we have upscalers in our regular computer games and everything, we also have now support in VR. So that's really cool, especially when you want to make a VR game, or if you're making a game that also has VR support, or if you're gonna port your game or simulation into VR, you do have an upscaler, so there will be boosts on it. So I am pretty excited, especially in the future. I'm gonna definitely get a VR and work with it and try to make something in Unigine with that too. The next thing is, in the last video I did say Spider Vision looks like it's for all types of editions for Unigine, but it looks like it's a sim specific edition. So unfortunately guys, I thought Spider Vision was for everyone, so I will apologize in advance, and it's not. It's specific for sim edition. So other than that, in sim for Spider Vision, we do have a little bit of update, cleanups here. The picture looks cleaner, our UI looks much better. The next thing is we are leaving, or it looks like Unigine is leaving DirectX 11 and they're going to be going to the DirectX 12, since 12 is the current standard. Other improvements, looks like we have quite a lot of other engine improvements over here. Now I can go through all of them, but in reality there's quite a few. Most of them are bugs fix. They do have an editor API change, and you can make your own version of the editor. So the next big update is going to be this animation preview. Now if you guys don't know what it is, it basically means you can preview the animations from the browser without actually having to do it the old-fashioned way. Now if you guys know what the old-fashioned way is the way that we've been using for a while. So if you look over here, we have our little guy here. Now if we wanted to play a certain animation, we would have to drag the animation into the guy, and then we would have to press play. Right now I'm just keeping it on a loop, so he's just doing it. The new version over here is you don't really need to play it at all. You can just click on it and it will show you exactly how the game plays, or how the animation plays. The next one is GUI Integration. So for C++ users like me, they have the GUI library, which allows us to have a really cool UI. What this helps is, instead of actually learning Unigine script, you could just use an GUI plugin and you can have the stuff set up, and then you can start working on the editor itself and then push it into the game, exactly like how you have it in like Unreal Engine or Unity. Other than that, we also have a little updates on the material graphs. We also have Unigine editor improvements, a few improvements into the editor itself. We also have the IG updates, which is the CIGI update, which I believe is Sim Edition and probably Engineering Edition too. But basically a lot of bug fixes inside it. You can also register inside the SDK browser, so you can download the SDK browser and you can definitely register for an account inside there. We also have a really cool little demo over here with a robot arm. So ever since they had the IK solver, we've been seeing a little bit more of that robotic look. And as you can see, we have a robot arm sample over here, which allows us to have the robot. It looks like we also have a few component samples like for C#, that we also have support for the C++ learning course. So if you guys want to learn how to use Unigine on C++ and you guys already know and you don't want to watch my videos, then you definitely have this. This is a really good learning area. It's a course good for C++ and it's already been for C#. So if you do want to learn Unigine, this is definitely the place for you. There's just a little bit of small little updates, and that's about it. Now I can go a little bit more further, but other than that, this is pretty much it for 2.19.1. The next update is definitely going to be 2.20, or is going to be Unigine 3. I am not sure, but whatever it is, it's going to be cool. But for now, these changes are amazing, and we are definitely going to be making a project inside 2.19.1. So for my side, the next video is going to be about the project that I'm deciding on. I wanted to make one, but I think I might make more than one, but we'll definitely see on that. We'll talk a little bit about architecture and everything, but for now, Unigine is definitely bringing out great updates. I see more potential in it than Unreal or Unity in terms of more support for community. Other than that, I will see you guys next time, and goodbye.